All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vicky Bertagnolli, and we are going to be talking about spiders that are commonly found in and around homes. It's kind of one of those things where we're going to talk about if we need to be scared or not be scared. And most of the time, we don't need to be scared. And one of the first things I want to make sure that I do is I want y'all to check out some of these websites that we've got. There's the Center for Invasive Species and Ecosystem Health. This is known as Bugwood, and they've got wonderful pictures, lots of information up there. And then Dr. Gary Mullen and Lance Durden have written the 3rd edition of the Medical and Veterinary Entomology textbook, which is absolutely awesome. And then Stoy Hedges and Richard Vedder have the field guide for the management of urban spiders. It's a PCT field guide. Is wonderful if you're wanting to find any kind of information about spiders that are found in and around the home. And I got some great pictures from Dr. Sarah Rose, who is an arachnologist from The Ohio State University. Kevin Weiner is a commercial pest control operator, and he operates All Bugs Go to Kevin Facebook page. And then Dr. Alex Wild at alexanderwild.com. Absolutely wonderful pictures. You guys are going to love these. So whenever we're talking about spiders, these go in a group that are called arachnids. And this is a group of arthropods that includes spiders, scorpion, harvestmen, mites, and ticks. So all spiders are arachnids, but not all arachnids are spiders. And when you start looking at the internet, so the interwebs and the Google, you start reading stuff in there and you see these things, and you've seen stuff where it says humans swallow 8 spiders in their sleep in their lifetimes, and daddy long-legged spiders are the most poisonous spiders in the world, and spiders bite people so that they can soften their skin so that they can lay eggs under your skin. And then there's, government conspiracies where they're producing these giant mutant spiders, and there's spider eggs in your bubble gum. I mean, all sorts of stuff is out there, and it's absolutely amazing. So in North America, there's about 68 families that include 569 genera and 3,700 species of spider. Now, let's put that in perspective. There's more than 1 million described species of insect. And worldwide, there's about 113 species of spiders that includes more than 46,000 species and more than 4,000 genera that have been described. And humans only come into contact with 10 to 15 of those 113 families of spiders, and only about 20 of those include spiders that are reported to cause a medical concern. When we're looking at the taxonomy for spiders, so there's the animal kingdom and there's the plant kingdom, and we're in the animal kingdom, and these are in the phylum Arthropoda because they do have jointed legs, and they're in the subphylum Chelicerata because they've got chelicerae. Those are mouth parts, and I'll show you where those are. They're in the class Arachnida because we're talking about arachnids. And then they're in the order Araneae, and this is subdivided into 2 suborders. And there's some primitive spiders, and then there's something where they have these infraorders that have tarantula-like spiders, like trapdoor spiders, funnel web spiders, tarantulas, and then there's the aranomorphs that contain all the other spiders, and that's kind of where we're going to hang out today. Whenever we are looking at a spider and we're trying to identify this, we're going to be looking at characteristics like their eye arrangement, the arrangement of sensory hairs, spines, if they're present, absent, where they're located, how they're oriented on different body parts. And then we're also looking at the claws at the ends of the legs. And the body of a spider is divided into two regions. There's a fused head and thorax called a cephalothorax, and there's an abdomen. And the cephalothorax bears the chelicerae, the mouth part, the pedipalps, the eyes, and the legs. And the chelicerae are paired structures that, depending on the spider, are used to seize prey, bite defensively, dig burrows, transport prey, and or carry egg sacs. And these chelicerae consist of two parts. There's a base, and then there's the movable fangs. And the mouth is located just behind these chelicerae. Now, in the megalomorphs, the chelicerae are oriented parallel to the long axis of the body, and they move parallel to one another in a vertical plane. And so these spiders strike downward whenever they're seizing prey. And then in the aranomorphs, the chelicerae are oriented perpendicular to the long axis of the body and are opposed to one another, and they move in a pincher-like motion. Most spiders have eyes in two rows, but some spiders lack one or more pair of the eyes, like in recluse spiders, and they only have 6 eyes. The pedipalps, these are 6 segmented appendages that primarily serve a tactile purpose, and they resemble legs in young spiders and females. And the terminal segment of those palps in males are swollen. They look like boxing gloves. So it's usually pretty easy to identify male spiders. We know that spiders have 4 pairs of 7 segmented legs, and they have structures like tarsal claws, tufts of hair, and depending on how many tarsal claws and if hairs are present or absent, those help you identify your spiders. The abdomen is connected to the cephalothorax with a pedicel, and there's 1 or 2 slit-like openings that lead to book lungs, and they're located ventrally, so on the underside of the spider, on the 2nd or 3rd abdominal segments. The more primitive spiders have 2 pairs of book lungs, and the more advanced ones have one pair. The genital opening for both sexes is located on the underside of the spider's abdomen, on the 2nd abdominal segment between those book lungs. And in females of the more advanced spiders, the epigynum is located just in front of the genital opening and leads to the spermatheca, where the sperm is stored after mating. And the presence of the epigynum is helpful in distinguishing females from immatures and males, and in identifying species. The spinnerets are located at the posterior end of the abdomen, and most spiders have 3 pairs of spinnerets. And the size and relative length of the spinnerets are diagnostic characteristics. In some groups of the aranomorph spiders, these are called cribellate spiders, there's a plate of these little tiny spigots called cribellum, and it's present in front of the anterior pair of spinnerets. And then there's a row of hair on the 4th pair of legs, and that comb, it's called a calamistrum, and they kind of comb the hair comb the silk, and those are called cribellate spiders. And then if they lack those structures, they're called ecrobellate spiders. So it's just another way to help narrow down the identity of these spiders. Now, all spiders except for 2 families have venom glands that are used to subdue prey. And the majority of spiders are venomous, but most are either too small, have small mouth parts, or possess poison that is too weak to harm humans. There's only about 60 species that have bites that are considered medically significant, and there are more deaths caused by bee and wasp stings than the likelihood of being bitten by a widow or a recluse spider. So this is one of those things where there's a lot of fear, and we really shouldn't be that scared of spiders. In North America, only the widow and recluse genera have proven to cause severe medical incidents, and spider bites really are grossly overreported. Now, that's not to say you won't get bitten, because when a spider that is large enough to have chelicerae that are large enough to pierce the skin and it's threatened, it may bite. But that doesn't mean that you will be envenomated. And it does not mean that you will be envenomated with full strength venom. And the severity of that reaction to the bite is going to be dependent on the species of spider, the size of it, and the amount of venom that's injected into it. Now, I want to talk about what is not a spider bite. If there are multiple lesions on the body at the same time, that's not a spider bite. Typically, spiders are going to bite once when they're getting, it's usually when they're getting crushed or almost crushed. And if someone complains that they've got multiple spider bites on their body, then this really points us to something else. There's another cause for it. Spiders, they can't survive multiple near fatal crushings repeatedly, so that they inflict a number of bites. And this is especially true if the lesions are widely separated on the body. Multiple lesions also are not going to be the work of spiders working together to come chase us. Now, if there's multiple lesions that appear over several months, it's statistically improbable that you're going to get more than one spider bite in a short period of time, no matter what the internet says. And if there's multiple people with lesions at the same time, I realize that people want to believe that, spiders are out lurking around, they're hiding in the dark corners, and they're just waiting for us to go to bed so that they can bite us. But that's not how that works, and they're typically not gonna bite us. Now, contrary to popular belief, it is extremely difficult to diagnose a spider bite, even by a physician. There's a lot of medical conditions that are mistaken for spider bites, and some of these conditions are bacterial, fungal, and viral infections, gangrene, diabetic or pressure ulcers, because those can mimic a necrotic-looking sore that could be a recluse bite. But several misdiagnoses have arisen from outbreaks of drug-resistant infections by Staph aureus. Those are MRSA infections, and that bacteria produces a painful skin lesion that resembles a recluse bite, but that bacterium can run rampant in close living quarters like hospitals, nursing homes, summer camps, military barracks, correctional facilities. venues like that. Similar looking lesions can also be caused by other types of insects and arthropods. So the point is that spider bites are rare, and what are often diagnosed as spider bites originate from another cause. And misdiagnoses by medical professionals means that clients are treated incorrectly, and symptoms can digress and even lead to death. Now, misdiagnosis also perpetuates the misinformation that a medically important spider is present in an area when, in fact, it is not. And this creates conflicts when arachnologists, entomologists, county agents, knowledgeable pest management professionals contradict medical professionals, and this causes a lot of confusion for the public. So what we really need to be looking at is that we should not be afraid of spiders. Spiders are beneficial predators, and they feed on living prey in our landscapes, and insects are the most common food source, not humans. But spiders also feed on other spiders, frogs, toads, snakes, lizards, mice, small birds, small fish. And as beneficial predators, the activities of these spiders help keep and look at that face. How can you be scared of something that cute? Now, whenever it comes to acquiring food, spiders have three main feeding strategies. And there's spiders like tarantulas, trapdoor spiders, burrowing wolf spiders. They build a burrow that is more or less permanent, and then they wait for prey to come close to that burrow entrance, or they make short excursions for food, and then they return to the burrow. Then you have spiders like jumpers, a lot of wolf spiders, sac spiders, ground spiders, tinids, recluse spiders. They wander extensively around looking for food that they happen upon and then ambush. And then you've got web builders who use webbing to detect and ensnare their prey. And the burrowing and the wandering spiders rely on their relative size, strength, and venom to subdue prey. And the web builders rely on the use of their silk to subdue their prey. Now, spiders are going to paralyze their prey item by exuding some digestive enzymes that liquefy the prey item's innards, and then they kind of suck them dry and leave a hollow shell behind. Spiders produce silk in silk glands within the abdomen, and it's a liquid composed primarily of a scleroprotein, and it's used in different ways. It's used to make webs, to wrap prey, to make egg sacs, and it's also used for wind dispersal in spiderlings. One of the first species that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about groups of spiders, and then we're going to talk about specific species in there. So the comb-footed spiders, there's about 31 genera with 229 species in North America. And this family of spiders typically have a round, marble-shaped abdomen. The eyes are all about equal in size, and they're going to be arranged in 2 rows of 4. Cobweb spiders, they're sometimes called comb-footed spiders. Remember I told you about the row of bristles on the hind tarsi to comb that silk from the spinnerets during web construction, and they also use that while they are wrapping their prey. Whenever it comes to Latrodectus, this is the genus that contains your widow spiders. There's 5 species found in the U.S., and these spiders typically have a shiny, usually black, round, marble-shaped abdomen. They're very docile. They're actually pretty timid. And when they're disturbed, they're going to try to escape rather than attack. These are commonly found in sheltered environments like under stones, under logs or in logs, in holes, in protected boxes like your valve boxes for your irrigation system and the water shutoff. So be careful whenever you are sticking your hand in some place like that. Females may kill and eat the male after mating, but this doesn't always happen. If the females are well fed, the males usually manage to make it to safety. Females can lay several egg masses over the course of a summer and may produce egg sacs the following year. Females can live more than about 3 years. And the bites of Latrodectus are considered medically significant. And the term latrodectism is a syndrome caused by the bite of several of these species. The venom contains a potent neurotoxin called alpha-lactotoxin that acts on the motor nerve endings on the neuromuscular junctions. And the syndrome can take several hours to develop with symptoms that persist 20 to 48 hours. The fatality rate is relatively low at about 5%, even in untreated cases. The southern black widow, this is one of the more common ones that we find in our landscapes. It's native to the entire state of South Carolina, and they are extremely docile. I used to have one in a jar that I toted around to the schools. I didn't take it out and let the kids play with it, but it was, I mean, I have taken her out before and handled her. I'm not condoning that you guys go out in the landscape and start playing with all the spiders out there, but they are relatively docile. And folks ask all the time, go ahead.
I was going to say, are you going to tell them the story about how you were teaching a class and she had babies and they all got out of the jar?
Yeah, so I had brought this black widow. This has happened twice. I had brought this black widow in a terrarium to show off to the class, and as I'm talking, the egg sac hatches, and I've got baby black widows running across the tables in my classroom. So as I'm talking, I'm killing babies as I'm delivering this class. Oh gosh, but
only Vicky.
Yep, that's just me. Now, black widows are documented to be beneficial for controlling imported fire ants, also harvester ants through predation. So, I mean, that's just one more thing to add to the list of why spiders are great. There is a spider called a false black widow, and this is one of at least 8 of the Statota species that occur in the U.S., and this is found along the coastal states of the Atlantic, the Gulf, and the Pacific regions. And most species have an abdomen that's purplish brown with pale yellow markings, but sometimes the markings are faded and they're difficult to see. But it does lack that red hourglass mark. Now, one thing that I'll add about the true black widows is that as those females mature, those red marks may disappear. So you won't always have a full red hourglass on the abdomen. Now the specimens of the false black widow, those are often mistaken for black widow, the true black widow, but the abdomen's more oval and not as marble-like. And this is actually one of the more common, what we call house spiders. And it's reported to capture and prey other spiders, including the true black widows. Females can produce 3 or more egg sacs from May through July, with each sac containing 200 or more cream-colored eggs. And these females are really long-lived, up to 6 years. The males are shorter lived, up to about 18 months, but most of them died shortly after mating. The bites are similar to, but less severe than that of true black widows. With a local, you just have a local bite reaction and mild effects. Brown widows, the mature females are about an inch and a half in body size, and they are highly variable in color from almost white to almost black, but usually they're going to be gray to brown in color with white and black markings on the top surface of the with an orange to yellow hourglass. The legs have dark bands with one half of each segment lighter in color than the other half. These spiders usually live 1 to 2 years, and a really good diagnostic characteristic for brown widow is the egg sac. It's going to be spherical, it's tan, but they resemble a sand spur. And you can see it in this picture that's on here. The other widow spiders have a white egg sac instead of a tan one, and it's completely smooth, and they tend to be pear-shaped instead of round. And they're found in urban areas. They can be, whenever they're around your home, they can be under roof eaves, under railings on porches and abandoned cars, in unused flower pots. We were just talking about this yesterday, that if you are one of those people that store your flower pots up with the opening on the ground and the bottom of the pot up, don't just stick your finger in there and pick up the pot, because that's how you end up getting bitten. Sometimes you'll find these spiders in piles of firewood, under outdoor chairs. I've got a nurseryman that I work for and that I work with, and she had them out just in her landscape. They were hanging out in her annual plants, in her annual herbaceous plants that she had out there. These are actually pretty timid spiders, and their primary defense mechanism whenever they're disturbed or threatened is to drop to the ground and curl up in a ball. So this is definitely not one that we need to be afraid of. The Field Guide to Urban Spiders, they talk about some identifying characteristics of recluse spiders when compared to other spiders. Non-recluse spiders, their legs tend to have thick spines, and recluse, they're going to have these fine, flat-laying hairs. There's no spines on them. The legs on non-recluse spiders tend to be striped, ringed, or spotted, and recluse spiders have uniformly colored legs. And recluse spiders, their legs, they're uniformly colored. They're usually tan. Sometimes the first legs are going to be orange, but they're usually tan. On non-recluse spiders, those legs are going to be dark brown or black. Non-recluse spiders, their abdomens are typically more than one color, and recluse spiders have a uniform colored abdomen, and that body length is not going to be any more than about 3/8 of an inch. And non-recluse spiders can be much larger than that. Really and truly, one of the most diagnostic characteristics of brown recluse is the eye pattern. Most spiders have 8 eyes and 2 rows of 4. Recluse spiders have 6 eyes with a pair in the front and a pair on either side in a U-shaped line that are going to form a gap in between each pair. And you can see that in these pictures. Can y'all see that?
The other thing to point out about recluse spiders is you really need to look at the range, because in South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, really until you get about halfway through Alabama, we just don't see them. And that's probably, that range right there is probably bigger than you're really likely to see?
So this is range of brown recluse, and there's a whole list of species in here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's some that aren't on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 species on here, but there's more of them. There's a Mediterranean recluse that's more of a tramp species, and it only shows up sporadically. There's a Chilean recluse that has a population in Los Angeles County that's been there since the 1930s but isn't moving. Typically, whenever there are recluse infestations, they're isolated in a small area unless those buildings are connected. And it's one of those things where recluse spiders are rarely found outside of their native range and are widely overreported. And David is saying something that he says in his district, every spider is called a recluse. And that is exactly how it is. Everybody that calls, they're not worried about anything else, but they're worried about brown recluse. And you ask them where they live, and they don't live anywhere close to any range of any species of brown recluse. But we do need to address it. So when you're looking at this thing, it's about the size of a quarter. These are docile spiders. I use that word a lot because it's true whenever it comes to spiders. They spend a lot of their time under rocks, under logs and wood piles, in debris if they're outdoors. And then when they're indoors, they're basements, attics, and garages. They're in places where there's a lot of clutter. There's not a lot of disturbance. And these are really tough spiders. They can withstand winters in unheated basements and absolutely stifling summer temperatures in attics. And they can persist a number of months without food and water. Now, brown recluse do not employ a web to capture food. Instead, they hunt at night, and they're looking for either live or dead insect prey. They absolutely, Paul Thompson's making a point that whenever it comes to recluse spiders, they can be transported, and that's more of how people are encountering brown recluse spiders, especially when they're out of range. It's because they've had something shipped, or they've received something from an area that did have recluse spiders.
Well, no, in fact, the only infestation that I know of in South Carolina happened that way. It was somebody who moved from Texas too easily, and they were able to trace it to that move.
Yep. This is one it's one of the most commonly misidentified spiders. This is the southern house spider. And females, so both the male and the female often are misidentified. The females are frequently mistaken for small tarantulas or trapdoor spiders. You can see her in the bottom picture. The males are often mistaken for recluse spiders. And these are actually totally harmless species. They build these messy webs that emanate from a crevice. And often they're on the outside of a house. Whenever you look at the males, they're uniformly yellowish tan, kind of straw colored, but they have these very long pedipalps. The females, to me, the abdomen almost looks velvety, but they're this charcoal gray color. And when you look at their eyes, they're grouped very closely together, and they're on this raised prominence. They like to inhabit spaces with the masonry. The females and the juveniles make these webs that occasionally are found under tree bark, but they're frequently seen on houses, barns, bridges, and other man-made structures, especially under windowsills, under and behind shutters, and also overhangs.
Vicky, there's a really good question here about why don't they like to bite, and the primary reason is venom is for hunting, not really defense, and it's very difficult for them to make it, and it takes a lot of energy to make it, so they don't like to waste it.
Yeah.
So it's not really even, it was never really meant to be a defense mechanism.
Yeah. So one of the scenarios that I had heard is that they're not biting us. It's kind of equivalent to because we're afraid of spiders. Humans are afraid of spiders. But it's kind of one of those things where it's like Godzilla opening up a door, seeing us, but then running away scared. Or it's like a David and Goliath type thing where we're trying to take down Godzilla, and that's just not going to happen. So that's why spiders are not going to bite. They're not apt to bite us. We get phone calls about wolf spiders all the time. These freak people out because they're big, and I'm going to show you a picture in the next slide of another reason why it freaks people out. But most spiders have 8 eyes and 2 rows. Wolf spiders have this a distinctive 4-2-2 eye arrangement, where there's a row of 4 small, similarly sized eyes just above the carapace margin, and then above that are 2 very large forward-facing. I mean, they look like headlights. Then there's going to be a second row of large eyes that sit back and out, where they're directed up and out. And these spiders have excellent vision, and there's a reflective organ in their eyes that allow them to see at night. So what I want everybody to do, I realize it's cooled off, but what I want everybody to do tonight is to go out with a flashlight. And if you shine that flashlight out in your backyard, you're going to see all these little eye shines reflecting back at you when you hit all the little wolfy eyes out in your yard. And they can be visible up to 30 feet.
Works even better if you put the flashlight on your forehead, because then the light bounces straight back at you.
So wolf spiders are active hunters for insects and other invertebrates, and particularly large females might eat small vertebrates like amphibians and reptiles if they find them. A semi-unique behavior is that females will carry the egg sac attached to her spinnerets. And whenever the babies are ready to hatch, the mother is going to open that sac, and the babies are going to climb up on the mother's back, where they're going to ride for 1 or 2 weeks before they fall off and venture out on their own. And it's not a big deal if the babies get knocked off, they'll climb right back up. They just herd right back together and climb right back up. But this is one of the things that freaks people out is they knock this spider, and then all of a sudden there's a bajillion of them because the babies fell off. The Carolina wolf spider is one of the more common ones, fairly large, considered the largest North American wolf spider that there is. Now, these are some of my very favorites. They're small, they're animated, they're really agile, and they're like these little stout. They remind me of little tanks. And these jumping spiders have really good eyesight, and it's used to actively hunt prey. And they get their name because of the hunting technique that they use, where they stalk their prey, and whenever they get into range, there's a cat-like reflexes where they jump on the prey. And they've got really good vision. There's a distinct eye arrangement with the middle pair of eyes that look almost like headlights. They're opportunistic. They feed on a lot of stuff out in our landscape. These are very good predators. Now, if you handle these, be careful with them. If they jump on you and on their own and are walking around doing their thing, it's usually fine. But if you reach down to pick one of these up, you may get bitten. The bites are usually asymptomatic, might be slightly painful, but it's going to be a local reaction. It's not going to be anything awful. One of the more common genus is the Phidippus, and these are some of the heaviest and hairiest jumpers. And a lot of males have eyebrow tufts. Look at that hairdo. Come on, tell me these aren't cute. So Phidippus audax, these are the bold jumping spiders. These are very common. They're mostly black with a white basal band on the abdomen. There's several spots behind this band. There's going to be a central spot that's going to be the largest. Southern specimens often have white spots on the carapace. Dr. Rose took these pictures, and her specimens are from Ohio. So they look a little bit different. Spitting spiders. This is another group. These are very easy to identify when you're looking at their eye arrangement. There's 6 eyes with a pair in the front and a pair on either side with a gap in between the pairs. And these are commonly mistaken for brown recluse. The coloring is different than brown recluse because the spitting spider, their body and legs are covered in spots. And another way to differentiate from brown recluse is that domed thorax, cephalothorax, which is greatly enlarged to accommodate spitting glands. And they recognize prey by tactile input and also substrate vibration. And these spiders, they're called spitting spiders because when they feel a prey item, these glands that they have allow the spider to spit silk at their prey item to tack it down and immobilize that prey so that the spider can safely feed on their catch. They're commonly found in homes, although they can be seen in fields, on the bark of trees, and under overhanging stones or slopes. Sac spiders, there's about 22 genera with 197 species in North America. These are generic looking spiders with a few conspicuous diagnostic characteristics. A major identifier are the short, conical, 2-segmented spinnerets, which means you guys are not going to get close enough to identify this thing by its major identifier. But sac spiders are only occasionally found in homes, and generally they're not a major pest concern. They spend their days in the sack that they built, and it's often built in a folded leaf, but you can be found under stones, logs, landscape timbers, piles of firewood, lumber, other debris, but they'll come out at night to hunt. One of the more common sac spiders is the yellow sac spider. And these are relatively small, straw-colored spiders. The front pair of legs is going to be longer than than all the others, and all 4 pairs have these double claws. But these are the only members that are involved in envenomations. There is the broad-faced sac spider, and this is common in the eastern U.S. The Tranquillus species is. Pacificus is going to be common in the western U.S. And whenever you're looking at this thing, it's got a dark magenta or cinnamon-colored cephalothorax with a tan abdomen and a slightly darker dorsal stripe. You can see it in these specimens on both of their abdomens. The front pair of legs are going to be darker and thicker, and the other 3 pairs become increasingly lighter and thinner toward the posterior of the spider. Most occurrences of tranquillus in homes coincides with falling temperatures in the autumn, but as a general rule, they don't establish in homes. These are found outdoors on foliage. They're going to be inside a rolled up leaf, under leaf litter, under stones, under boards, under windowsills, and also siding. They do produce a painful bite that's similar to a bee or wasp sting, and there have been records of severe secondary infection. So this is one that you want to be mindful of handling. Link spiders are some of my favorite ones out there. They have a diagnostic eye arrangement, and you can see it in this specimen here. There's 6 eyes in a hexagon with 2 smaller eyes below that hexagon closer to the chelicerae. Link spiders have thin legs with dark spines that stick out almost perpendicular to the leg. Most members of this family are brown and tan and not brightly colored, with the exception of the green lynx. Now, the usefulness of link spiders as biological control, because these are found not only in the home landscape, but also in agricultural settings. Their usefulness as biological control is sometimes canceled out by the fact that they're really willing to eat beneficial insects too. They don't care what it is, they just want to eat. But the most commonly encountered lynx in North America, especially the southern U.S., is going to be the green lynx. And this thing is bright Granny Smith apple green. And a lot of times you're going to find it in the tops of low shrubs and herbaceous vegetation. Now, something interesting about this was reported by an arachnologist to spit venom almost 8 inches. That's what 200 millimeters is 8 inches. And as stated before, their willingness to prey on beneficial insects sometimes cancels out the fact that they're beneficial biological control of other insect pests. The woodlouse spider, there's in this particular family, there's only one member of the family, and this is originally from the Mediterranean area, but it's often confused with the broad-faced sack spider that we just looked at. But the woodlouse spider has 6 eyes in a tight clump. The broad-faced sack spider has 8 eyes that are set really far apart. Now, woodlouse spiders prey on pill bugs and sow bugs. So they have very large chelicerae and fangs, and you can see it in the specimen here. These large mouth parts make them look really menacing, but they're not considered medically significant. We get phone calls about the black and yellow argiope all summer long. And these are extremely common, but they're easy to identify by their web. They have a classic Charlotte's Web style web with these radial spokes, and there's a spiral emanating from the central portion of that web. These are sometimes called writing spiders, but these are some of your most common orb weavers out in the landscape. So I've used common names a couple of times in here. This is a spider that they're often incorrectly referred to as daddy long legs because they've got these long spindly legs. So this is a good place to mention the use of common names versus scientific names. Common names are typically unreliable because they can vary greatly. And they also tend to be regional. scientific names are understood around the world, no matter what the language, and they only refer to one organism. So properly, daddy longlegs are harvestmen, which are in the order Opiliones, which are arachnids but not spiders. And the difference between harvestmen and this spider is that harvestmen have one body part and they've got two eyes on the top of the body. But they're not arachnids. And spiders here, these are in the order Araneae, and harvestmen are much larger than cellar spiders, and they're found outdoors. These cellar spiders are going to be relatively small with a rectangular shaped body, and these are going to be found most often indoors. There's about 80 genera with about 1,600 species worldwide, about 13 genera with about 50 species in North America, north of Mexico. Cellar spiders typically hang upside down beneath their webs, and only after they wrap their prey thoroughly is that spider going to move in to feed, because these are very dainty, they're soft-bodied, and they don't want to get damaged in the feeding process. The females are going to bundle her eggs in a few strands of silk, and she carries those around with her. Now, the take-home message of this whole talk, I tried to show you spiders that are common in our landscapes, they're common in our houses, but spiders should not be feared. Instead, we need to appreciate, and we actually need to nurture them for the important duties and jobs that they perform in and around our home and our landscape. Folks are very concerned about going natural, going organic. Spiders in the landscape and in the home performing pest control, this is 100% natural pest management. It's effective and it's efficient. So we need to appreciate those spiders in our landscapes and not be scared of them, especially the cute ones. Come on. Again, I got a lot of this information out of these books. The urban field, the field guide for the management of urban spiders from PCT, also the MedVet entomology textbook. These amazing pictures that I showed you today came from Bugwood, Dr. Rose, Kevin Weiner, and also Dr. Alex Wild. So, questions, concerns, consternations. What have we got?
Well, we've been answering most of them in the chat. One other really good resource, particularly for non-entomologists in the Southeast, is Spiders of the Carolinas by L.L. Gaddy.
Yep.
That's the one I use most of the time because
I do too. It's a field guide to 100 of the most common spiders that we have. And there's also a Spiders of the Eastern United States. There's usually one, there's usually a guide for all of the different regions.
Somebody said, are there any spiders to be feared?
I think that most of them are extremely cute if you really look at them. Come on, look, it's got eyelashes.
I think unless you're in Australia, there's probably not too many.
Yeah,
really
in the
spend a lot of time
U.S.,
thinking about.
In the U.S., there's not very many that we need to be frightened of. Now, this is different than if you have a phobia. I understand if there's a phobia, but we shouldn't be walking around thinking that spiders are following us and stalking us and coming after us. That's not what they do.
Yeah, and somebody just asked if wolf spiders are dangerous. The answer to that is no. You're much more likely to have a heart attack from spiders than you are to have a bite that kills you.
And you are more likely to be stung by a bee or a wasp than to be bitten by a spider. When people are bitten by spiders, it's because they have crushed them or nearly crushed them, and that is a last-ditch effort to not get killed.
Yeah, and Brian Cabrera just asked, how many confirmed spider bites have we seen? You know, I've been doing entomology since the mid '80s. When you start talking confirmed spider bites, the answer is
That's
very
with a
few.
specimen. With a
Yeah, that's very, very few that I would call confirmed. I could think of one case with a black widow that I knew that's what it was. Everything else is unconfirmed or guessing kind of thing. So it's just, you know, it's actually a pretty rare event, I think. And as Vicky said earlier, it's really seriously overdiagnosed.
Yeah, I went to a dermatologist, and I was in the waiting room for 15 minutes. Literally in 15 minutes, 2 people came in saying they were bitten by spiders.
We have a couple other questions. One is about allergies. It is possible for people to have allergic reactions to spider bites, but again, I think that would be fairly rare, partially because spiders don't bite that often. And you may be having an reaction to some of the other enzymes that are there. Another question that was here is there a study to know why people are excessively creeped out or fear spiders when insects and other creatures don't have a strong reaction? To be honest, I don't know if there's a study about it, but my conclusion is it's just because they got too many legs. If there's more than 6, they are to be feared.
Yep. It's one of those things where we tend to fear what we do not know. And spiders and snakes are 2 things that folks don't know a lot about. Sometimes they're kind of iffy on identification, and so you're scared of what you don't know.
Andrew, that's a really good question. How can we best extend these messages to medical professionals on spider bite misdiagnoses? I don't know that you really can, because, you know, being a medical doctor, they don't listen to me having being an insect doctor most of the time. But I have had situations where somebody insists that the doctor says that it's a brown recluse bite, and I have had those people go back and insist that they test for something like MRSA, and nearly always when they do that, they find that it is MRSA and a secondary infection from something else. So part of that is, you know, just being a good patient and saying, I insist that you check for these other things. And I think that's really the only way to do that. And yeah, telling your physician they're wrong doesn't really work. But what does work is saying, well, then test me for this and test me for that, because I want better proof than what you've given me. All right. We've got the poll up there, so we appreciate you filling that out. And I'm trying to close up some screens here so I can actually see what's going on. Next month we have Mark Pavlovsky. He's going to be talking about the reintroduction of the red cockaded woodpecker, which is really pretty interesting, and has a lot to do with some of the management that we've done. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting.
All right, with that, I guess we will see you all next month. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.